Welcome, everybody. Tom here. Today's AMA live stream will be with Hummingbot, and we're really excited to learn a little bit more about the product and the project. So please welcome on screen right now Michael Feng. Michael Feng is the co-founder of Hummingbot. Michael, how are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So why don't we start with, can you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So Hummingbot is I'm one of the founders of Hummingbot. It's an open source software that helps traders build trading bots, which are automated, basically processes that run automatically between and on exchanges. For example, arbitrage or market making or other types of trading strategies are ones that our software enables.
Got it. Appreciate it. So, since I've been in the crypto space for a little while, we often hear about different options of plugging into various bots and etc. What could you tell us about what differentiates Hummingbot from others out there?
Yeah, great question actually. So I think one reason why we started Hummingbot is we also observed there was many, like kind of bots out there, both open source bots and also retail kind of like web-based bots that people had access to. But we felt that a lot of them, they were unreliable. And you weren't sure, especially the ones that were web-based. You weren't sure like who's actually running it behind the scenes and whether that
Right.
person might be, hacking you or doing something malicious. So
Right.
we want to really try to create an open source project that people can actually trust and rely on because it's truly community based. Because the reality is, trading bots also help the exchanges and especially the protocols where you run them on. So that's why from the beginning we've always been kind of like build a project in partnership with the top exchanges and blockchain protocols in the world in order to create an open source framework that people can use to run kind of trading bots in a trusted way. So what we do is we build integrations to different exchanges that are exported by the exchanges, and then offer a framework where people can basically build and define various automated strategies that can run on those exchanges. And so we're actually sustained by the volume that people do. So the more volume that people use our software on various exchanges, the more of the fees when they incur on those exchanges are rebated back to us. So it kind of creates a self-sustainable kind of business model where from our standpoint, our goal is simply to grow the community and to see as much volume pass through our exchange connectors as possible, which gives us which brings in more revenues, and then that is allocated to the token holders, which then allocate those revenues toward various initiatives like building new integrations, enhancing the current ones, and also various things to grow the community.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like bots ultimately are something that, in theory is a win-win for everybody, right? In terms of the exchange, you end up getting more liquid order books for a user. You can kind of, get your mind at ease and not have to emotionally be trading out there. But like you said before, I felt like oftentimes the missing piece was that who is behind this? Can I trust whoever is building this? Are they going to steal my money? And a lot of people are not very technical, so it becomes there's a big hesitation in there in trusting a bot product.
Yeah, absolutely, actually, and I think that's actually, I would say that's exactly the problem that Hummingbot was designed to solve for. Because all of our code is in GitHub, it's always open source, and also I think the other thing we've actually realized since launching the project 3 years ago is that there is this kind of educational gap in place where people kind of they think of like a bot as like a black box where you kind of like give in some money, push a button, and off it goes. When it's actually the exact opposite. A bot is really a computer program, and so the reason you want to run a program is because it's going to be looking for trade opportunities, that follow a certain pattern, even while you're sleeping, because you don't want to be like, looking at the screen all day long, waiting for, let's say, an arbitrage opportunity to appear. You rather automate a process that actually looks for that instead. And so that's really what a trading bot is, which is encapsulating some logic that you figure it out, some pattern that you've observed, and instilling that into a process that's automatic and going to trade based on that. And so that's why I think a lot of our job is simply to teach almost the computer science aspect of it, which is now that we have a framework that allows people to create any type of trading strategy they want, how do we actually teach people to actually do that using our software? So that's why we're actually launching a boot camp to basically teach people, you come to us with any trading strategy you want, and we'll help you basically express that using the Hummingbot scripting framework, which will hopefully empower more people to do more volume through Hummingbot as well.
Right, makes sense. So speaking of strategies there, can you touch upon some of the strategies that can be run? So you say any. Is it really any strategy that you want, or and if so, maybe give us some examples so we can,
Sure.
the rest of us can, bring it down.
Yeah, of course. So it really is any, because the way I define a strategy is anything that kind of like is automated and does the same thing over and over again. So so that's why we're actually starting this bootcamp that teaches you any basic looping process that you want to enable that interacts with different markets and exchanges. You can basically create in Hummingbot. But some of the most common ones that people already use with Hummingbot, and these are kind of like the ones that we kind of ship with certain strategies that people use more often. So the most popular ones are what we call our pure market making strategy, which is simply just a way to provide liquidity to one single trading pair on one exchange by placing a set of orders. So why would you want to do that? Because it is a way that, let's say you could, let's say you're market making for a very safe pair like a stablecoin pair. You can basically buy low and sell high, and kind of make money as markets move around if you have like a low enough fee tier on that exchange. But also the strategy is also run a lot by exchanges as well as token projects themselves to provide liquidity for their own kind of trading pairs and their tokens. And then another more popular one is we have like kind of ones that are called like arbitrage, where you're basically looking for opportunities to buy low and sell high across both centralized and decentralized exchanges. As well as we have one called cross-exchange market making, where you can basically market make and provide liquidity in one exchange while hedging. So basically, anytime you're filled on that exchange, you hedge on a different exchange. And so that's quite popular for a lot of like small exchanges or people who want to basically provide liquidity to a small exchange, but you can kind of take advantage of liquidity on a larger one to do so. So overall, Hummingbot's a pretty specialized tool. I would say, and mainly because we've always really focused on this market making type of use case. But now, actually, I would say now we're actually starting to expand into more generalized use cases because we do see it as a pretty generalized framework for building anything you want. So we're starting to kind of add things like indicators, and add more exchanges, and introduce basically kind of like more educational programs to teach people how to actually get the most out of Hummingbot and to basically build whatever strategy they want using our framework.
Right. Makes sense. Speaking of the educational program, you mentioned before a boot camp, but maybe can we go a little bit more in depth about what something that is, someone that's a new user, how can they learn more about Hummingbot and maybe potentially strategies? Because like I can get super excited. Okay, great. I'm going to run a bot and do strategies, but now what? How?
Right, exactly, and so that's actually the purpose of the bot camp, because I would say it's called Hummingbot Bot Camp. We're actually doing we're doing a beta batch right now just to test out the framework, but we're planning on launching the first official batch in the beginning of November this year. But the idea is that we're going to teach people the principles of market making, and so you can. Like basically come to us and say, I want to build this type of strategy, and we can teach you how to build that one. But we'll also along the way, we'll teach you kind of what does market making actually entail? Why is it kind of different as a trading strategy compared to how traditional and more directional strategies work in the past? And what are the things that you can actually do with market making that you can't do with other strategies? So for example, one thing is that I think one thing people should appreciate is that this is actually one fundamental difference with crypto and traditional markets, which is that you can actually access the order book of the exchange, and therefore you can do strategies where it's like you're actually placing orders on the order book.
Right.
And whereas in traditional finance and equities, for example, you always have to go through a broker, and so because of that, like you're always like taking liquidity as opposed to providing liquidity. And so that fundamental difference is key because, especially in crypto, there are always places that want to reward people for providing liquidity. There are new exchanges or there are tokens that need liquidity for the tokens. So they're doing liquidity mining campaigns. So there's kind of like ways to create essentially almost like arbitrage like trades where you're providing liquidity to like, an exchange and you're hedging that with some other exchange. And because like your hedging cost is lower than the amount of kind of fees or rebates you're getting for providing liquidity, you're basically making money almost like free. And that's especially true when there's like, let's say like in cases like, in Hummingbot where we have platforms like the one that our parent company runs, like Hummingbot Miner, which is basically giving tokens to people for providing liquidity, and so if you can like kind of run Hummingbot there and then hedge that, or do other strategies yourself, then, you kind of find ways to basically generate a free, like a side income as a side hustle for yourself. And so what we've kind of discovered is that there's actually a pretty like a sizable cohort of people who manage to do that using our tool, where they're basically using it as essentially a custom like algo trading framework for themselves, and so that's why we it's unfortunately it still is quite hard to do that, which is that's kind of why we're trying to focus on education as a way to try to expand that small but very profitable community of traders.
Yeah, makes sense. Even for people that might come from traditional markets, just the fact that over there you don't really have visibility into the order book. I mean, in crypto in general, you open up a whole new world of opportunities just by the fact that you can see right there on your screen the limit orders in place.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I would say one thing in the past is that I think with Hummingbot is like we've always I think we've always tried to offer these like kind of more fixed strategies to kind of try to get people to like really like to try to almost dumb it down for everyone. But I would say we have discovered recently that because the people who are the most profitable and successful with Hummingbot are kind of like the folks who tweak their own strategies and kind of like basically build like not just run the off-the-shelf ones, but kind of use our framework to define what they want to build. So that's kind of why we're trying to orient more toward kind of almost like developers, or at least people who are somewhat technical, because we feel like those people are the ones who are really capable of using our tool to basically build what they want. Because the value of Hummingbot is really the fact that you have access to all the different exchanges in the world, in a standardized format, so that you can basically say, if you say I want to buy on Binance and sell on Uniswap, you can basically call the same API endpoints regardless of what exchange are you dealing with, because we try to standardize what it means to buy and sell across the different exchanges. So and as an engineer, you don't have to do that work. So that's why for us, it's really about kind of like trying to take that kind of the value of all those integrations in one place, and really trying to make sure that the entire trader and developer community has access to a toolkit, which allows them to do it where they want across all those exchanges.
Right, and to add to that, just the fact that in the crypto world, I mean, just the exchange space and the various order books being so fragmented, not unified, opens up a lot of opportunities as well. And so many places in which there are rewards for doing this, and that maybe in the traditional world there aren't so many of those opportunities to like take advantage only you saw. But here in this world, it's like this project, Project X on Exchange X is giving out rewards for liquidity, right? And you may have been the only one that saw the announcement on Twitter. You saw it first because you follow that project, and there's an opportunity for you. So yeah, there's
exactly.
a lot of
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's why like part of it is like, but the challenging part for us honestly is to kind of like try to grow the code base in a systematic way, because like the opportunities really live on a lot of these new like not just new exchanges but new blockchains even.
Right.
So it's like that's why I think for us, and this is kind of like, I think the kind of the blessing, the curse of being a community-based project is because we actually need the community to expand to all the ecosystems where Hummingbot's capable of, but we also have to try to standardize something so that the folks building, let's say, the near integration aren't kind of like colliding with the folks building the Solana integration, and then we're kind of defining like one standard for how you trade even across like exchanges and blockchains.
Right, makes sense. And speaking of decentralized community, there's the Hummingbot Foundation. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and maybe how users can support it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we originally Hummingbot as an open source project was built by one company, Coin Alpha Inc., our parent company. So Coin Alpha is still a 50-person company that uses Hummingbot. Is part of one of the biggest contributors to the ecosystem, and they use Hummingbot to provide market making services and other financial services to different exchanges and token issuers. However, they made this decision about 9 months ago to set up the Hummingbot Foundation to basically house the open source project separately from the for-profit company. And the reason for that is because I think we all see an opportunity to build something that looks like Linux one day, an open source project where it's truly community owned, where people are like building integrations to different exchanges and which are going to scale to however many there will be in the world. And we have other people building strategies as well, and everyone's using this shared code base that for whatever they want. And so that's kind of why because we saw the Linux kind of vision, we kind of realized that it doesn't make sense for one single open source like a company to like kind of own that open source project. We kind of want to set it free, which is why we set up the foundation to do that. And we therefore, just like because we're in crypto, we issued a token. The token, it wasn't really intended to be like a sold. We just kind of because we're Coin Alpha was a US based company, they just kind of gave the token some to like team members, gave some to the community. But we never actually. It was actually honestly intended to be a true governance token for the project. But the reason we felt comfortable in establishing the project at that point in time was because the foundation already had a sustainable business model, which is the business model is partnered with different exchanges like Gate actually, where we have an ID built into the code base. So every time someone uses Hummingbot to do a trade on Gate, a small percentage of the trading fees are rebated back to Hummingbot Foundation. So what it means is basically that we have these kind of agreements with different top exchanges all over the world. So what that means is anytime someone uses Hummingbot, as a user on those exchanges, a share of their fees come back to us. And right now, that number on average of last a few months has been something like about between 20,000 total to about $50,000 a month in terms of total fees that we're seeing from exchanges. And we anticipate that as Hummingbot grows, as we expand the user base, as we improve the integrations we have to all the top exchanges, we'll see more and more volume and therefore more and more fees coming back to us. This number is already kind of like equal to our monthly operating costs, but in the future, as we see a profit, that any profits go to treasury, and that is controlled by the token holders as well. So currently the HBOT token, we're using it primarily to fund developers to maintain the code base, to fix bugs, and to add new integrations. But over time, as we actually kind of like see profits, kind of like from these exchange integrations, those will also go to treasury and need to be allocated by token holders as well. So that's really the model for the project. Really, is to I would say we're kind of like a strange token because it really is about governing an open source code base, but I think it's about kind of like also we have really solid community of quant traders who basically use the project for their own purposes, and therefore we think they have a vested interest in using the token to actually govern how the code base evolves.
Got it. Makes sense. It's definitely good to hear that the project has a revenue model, a clear revenue model in place there. And happy to hear that you guys are around the break-even figure, which I'm sure a lot of projects can't say the same in these
Yeah,
markets.
yeah. I mean, I do actually look forward to different use cases that the community comes up with the token in the future, because I do think of us as that we're ultimately a trader community, and the token is a shared asset for that trader community. But yeah, I would say in the near term, that's kind of also why we're doing these educational initiatives, because that's also, we think, a secondary source of revenue for the foundation. We just feel like right now it's a crypto bear market for everyone,
Right.
and from our standpoint, it's really just about how do we make sure that we have a sustainable project for the long run, so that we're here in 10 years, 20 years, and we keep on kind of creating something that's durable for the long term, instead of just something that is just a token for the sake of a token. So that's why from our standpoint, like, as long as we're growing the community of users and we are increasing the number of people using our open source project, through education and through working with Gate and partners like this to really educate people, then that's how we're going to kind of eventually basically get to where we need to be.
Got it. All right, very cool, Michael. Really appreciate all the insights. How about we? There's some questions sent over Twitter that
Okay.
we appreciate if you could answer for us.
Sure.
Yep. First one on screen. We have at Unsee. How does Hummingbot store my private keys and API keys? So just going back to the topic of
Right.
of security there.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I would say that this is what Hummingbot makes it unique, is that it's it's really your responsibility to use Hummingbot. It's local software you download, and then it's stored in we ask you for a password when you start the tool, and so that password is used to encrypt all your private keys and API keys you store with Hummingbot. So that does mean that if you lose that password, no one else we can recover it for you, and no one else can recover it, because only you have access to that password and which you use encrypted with. But so it's really used the same kind of encryption technology as like MagEther wallet or any type of like kind of wallet that you're installing and running locally.
Makes sense. Next question. Kagricules. Will voting with HBot cost gas or incur other transaction fees?
That's another great question. Man, you guys are throwing softball questions at me. No, actually, we've designed a system to vote only gaslessly. Basically, that's why all the voting is done on snapshots. So the address is snapshot.org/hbot.eth. But basically, all the voting is done on Snapshot, which doesn't incur gas, and so everyone is voting based on the amount of HBOT tokens you have in your wallet.
Okay, cool. Next question from Straps. Straps says, "Do you have any plans for a hackathon program to reward members of the community for finding bugs?"
Yeah, man, more softballs. What are you guys doing to me here? Actually, so that's actually something we just started recently, which was a bug bounty program. We started this in August to basically where we because the goal of Hummingbot is really ultimately to make sure we have a high quality code base that's maintained in the community. So what we started to do was we started to allocate basically bugs that we think that are capable of the community to be fixed. So since I think August, we've had I think something like probably 10 bugs that have been fixed, and we paid out bounties on. Another 14 that are kind of like in process right now, being reviewed. And actually, to be honest, we actually have a dearth of open bugs that people we haven't yet assigned to community developers. So it's actually been a huge hit, and really shown that we can actually rely on the community to, basically fix, open bugs in open source code base incentivized by tokens. So it's a program that we're going to, heavily expand on in the coming months. And so this is already ongoing right now. So if you're interested in participating, just hop on our Discord, ask one of our staff members, and or basically navigate to our docs where we have the bug bounty board that shows all the issues you can pick up.
Cool, appreciate it. And then we have a few more softball questions. I guess people
Okay, sure.
soft on the questions they chose today. But are you planning to promote the project in countries where English is not good?
Okay. Yeah. This actually is a hard question. So I would say yes and no, because obviously, we're not a huge project by any means. We only have like 13 people that work at Hummingbot Foundation. However, and what we see in terms of usage is that only about 20% of our users are from the U.S. Even though our company was originally based in the U.S., 80% are completely global. The second biggest country in terms of population we're seeing users is actually China. So that's actually one reason why, and so we think China, both China and Chinese speaking population in general is an area where we want to invest into. So we do have a community manager in China who is helping us translate a lot of materials for the Chinese speaking audience globally. And I think he's actually working with Gate as well on initiatives to try to grow that community. We haven't done that focus yet on other countries around the world. We do have some Spanish speakers, on the team, so we could do we could start creating more Spanish materials as well. But right now, I would say our main focus is really to focus on kind of English as in terms of like where our content's in, as well as documentation, and then at least like try to grow the community in China and experiment with seeing if we can kind of grow that audience there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, since usually in China, the way in which one handles community management is so different than the rest of the world. The channels are completely different. So I guess you're right. It wasn't such a softball question that one. But our next one, this one is super softball. Where can I get all the latest news about the project? Do you have a Twitter, Telegram, Discord community? Can you talk to us about that?
We do have a Twitter. It's Hummingbot _IO as a Twitter. However, Discord is probably the main hub for everything Hummingbot. The address is discord.gg/Hummingbot. It is our server. We have like 25,000 people there, and we actually think it's the largest community of kind of like crypto quant traders around. So there's actually a pretty active like social channel just with people talking about trading news and things that are happening out there in the quant trading world. So that's probably the main force. And then we actually just relaunched our website again. So because we before we had it was a confusion in terms of like we had two different websites, but now it's hummingbot.org is the one and only website for Hummingbot out there.
Makes sense. Now there's some questions from sent over by the audience. So how about I'll paraphrase a little bit just to make it a little bit less, We have Fashion World here asking what your top 3 things or 3 priorities are for 2022. But how about I'll change it to what would you say is the top 1 priority? What's the one thing that you guys in the next year you'll feel okay?
Yeah, sure. That's very easy for me to answer that. So the one initiative is really this developer bootcamp that we're starting. It's actually called Bot Camp. Is our internal name for it, because we feel like it's really about, I think, growing the user base for Hummingbot and growing and when we think it's really like growing the number of people out there who are capable of basically quant trading. Because the one thing we've realized is that now that Hummingbot is connected to all the different exchanges out there, it's actually really simple to actually give people the ability to really build all kinds of customized, really creative strategies that they want. And so, but education is really the heart, the key to it, because I think a lot of we've realized that people need to learn both the technical aspect, which is how to actually build this trading bot from a developer standpoint, but they also need to learn the theory aspect, which is why does this strategy actually make money, and when does it make money, where are the risks, how do I think about kind of like creating a trading strategy on my own, which is actually going to like from a theory perspective, the more I work on it, the better it's going to get. Like, how do I kind of like kind of create that mindset? So it's a combination, I think, learning the technical and also the finance aspects. I think that and the reason we're confident we can teach this is because both we and also members of our community, we've seen them get there, and we've seen them kind of basically just sort of tinker around with Hummingbot and get to a point where they're actually investing a bunch of their spare income, and they're actually tracking their profits on a monthly basis. So we feel like we can actually kind of basically essentially use our framework to try to grow the community of individual hobbyist market makers and individual quant traders out there.
Cool. And then Michael, here from Crypto Stars, each project has interesting stories before it is created. So starting from that point, I'm curious to know, how does a decentralized community even get started? How do you, with a bunch of, I'm assuming, strangers, decide to go on into a project like this?
Yeah, well, so yeah, I think that I think for us it was really it was doing Hummingbot was almost like it was really just like we had no other choice really. We felt at that point. So the backstory, we started as a crypto hedge fund in 2017 called Coin Alpha. That was a company name. Actually, that's still the name of our for-profit company. And then so we actually launched our own crypto hedge fund, but we actually we were trying to democratize the space. So we allow people to invest using Ethereum in a smart contract. And we had you can invest on a daily basis, getting it out, because everything was done on blockchain. But one day we got a letter from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and it said, "Hey, it looks like you're doing general solicitation, which means that you're allowing anyone to potentially invest in a hedge fund, which is not allowed." And so essentially, we talked to them for a long time. They realized we weren't trying to do something bad, but they felt like we should shut down. So we actually ended up shutting down our fund, even though our fund actually did really well. We made I think 23% net in a year where Bitcoin and Ethereum were down like 9%. So I think that's kind of why after we shut down our fund, we didn't know what else to do. So we just basically just open sourced our tech stack, which became Hummingbot. And so it was really just from a place of like, hey, you know what, we did do something valuable, which was we created like a good kind of algo trading framework. And so we just open sourced it, and then it spent like most of 2019 and 2020 basically trying to find ways that the company could actually make money from creating this open source software. Luckily, they actually did find a few ways to make money. They raised a Series A round. It is now like a pretty really growing a really good business as a market making and trading firm, mostly actually using Hummingbot. But then that's kind of why we have the open source project and a standalone from that.
Gotcha. So it was kind of more of a story in which you and the founders already kind of knew each other from before, and you pivoted to the solution to because you had something there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think more of the stories on my personal side here is that so like before we were one company, we had three co-founders, and we were traditional, kind of like a software startup, like a Silicon Valley software startup.
Okay.
But and I would say, and my co-founder, my two founders are still very much on that journey. But for me, I've kind of taken the different approach, which is now I'm coordinating the launch about this token foundation. And so I would say I'm no longer on the kind of like the software journey, and now I'm really honestly just trying to make this open source project viable, and the token, a sustainable part of that open source project. So that's why it's I think like I think to me the more like the big change is like it's kind of like I'm really focused on like just kind of like basically growing this project as opposed to a traditional software business, which is what Coin Alpha is really.
Right. Cool. Makes sense. Appreciate that. And then from my side, Michael, I had a question.
Okay.
So what blockchain is HBot built on, and why did you select that blockchain?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's based on Ethereum right now,
Mhm.
and so it's based on Ethereum because we really saw HBot as kind of like just like a governance token,
Mhm.
and so so because the governance system, we felt we could do it more or less gaslessly. We just wanted to have Ethereum and HBot be on like kind of the most widely adopted chain out there, so that people, because we thought that because of all our users and where they would use it on, we thought that HBOT would probably trade a lot of centralized exchanges, and so
Mhm.
we wanted to try to make sure HBOT was on a chain that pretty much every single centralized exchange would support. Because we've seen some issues that other tokens have had when they launch on other chains, where it wasn't supported maybe by exchanges, and they couldn't kind of like actually get their tokens on different exchanges. So yeah, we just went with Ethereum because it was like the most basic one. We are actually open to kind of like having our token on different chains if there's a use case for having our token on those chains. But to be perfectly honest, we did have an experience where, because we bridged our tokens to Avalanche, using the Nomad protocol, because our parent company Coin Alpha was offering some rewards on the Avalanche blockchain, and we're kind of like giving out some HBOT to those people. So we wanted people to actually have some liquidity on Avalanche. Unfortunately, we used Nomad. We selected Nomad after looking at their security, for a long time. But then, unfortunately, like a month after we bridged our tokens over, Nomad got hacked, and our tokens were, also taken along with everyone else's tokens. So our tokens were a small drop in the bucket compared to the 190 million tokens that were 190 million in losses people incurred in Nomad. But we did lose 1% of our token supply, and to the hacker who now the person's already sold it, and it's kind of like it's already gone and dealt with. However, it was just a lesson learned that I think as a token, I think you kind of want to make sure you don't do any bridging unless you absolutely have to, because any bridge is going to introduce a new security vector, for your token. So that's why for the time being, I would say, at least from our side, especially since gas prices have fallen, and now it's actually we can actually use Ethereum to make payouts, distribute our token without too much expense. I would say, I think for us, like, I don't think we're going to bridge any other chain besides Ethereum unless we absolutely have to. And our main priority right now, from a token standpoint, is kind of like basically doing the legal changes we need to do in order to make sure we can actually get our token listed on all the exchanges out there.
Cool. Makes sense. Appreciate the insight there. So, Michael, we've reached the end of the questions received. We want to thank you for being here with us today. Really appreciate all the insights that you gave us. And everybody, please make sure you take out Hummingbot's bootcamp or bot camp. And yeah, until next time, everyone.